Now, it seems that Minnesota is collapsing under one of the biggest welfare scandals in American history. $500 million stolen, federal indictment stacking terrorism, financing alleged, and the same governor who ignored 400 whistleblowers is out here attacking Trump on TV like nothing happened. This is the story no one is telling straight, all right? So let's get into it.
A new, stunning report from the City Journal showing a massive fraud scheme in Minnesota. You have to hear about this. It involves false autism claims, the Somali community, and connections to a terror group. Let's explain over at The Wall. Now, it all revolves around autism and HSS program. That is Minnesota's Medicaid Housing Stabilization Services. Now, this was created to help seniors, addicts, and others find housing, but the criteria to enter this program was incredibly loose and therefore easy to take advantage of. It's led to fraud and costs absolutely exploding. Just 5 years ago, in 2020, costs for this program were $2.6 million. 4 years later, by 2024, cost had been over $100 million, 104. Through the first 6 months of this year, costs are at $61 million, meaning if you double that over the entirety of the year, you're looking at $122 million. In 5 years, from $2 million to $122 million. Now, why? 6 people are accused of defrauding HSS, and they're members of the Somali community. But this just gets worse if we take a look at Minnesota's federally funded autism program. Now, several people, and this is an example, a woman in the Somali community, are co-conspirators, and they're accused of recruiting kids for autism therapy. They brought in families, had them convinced to get their kids diagnosed as autistic. In fact, these families ultimately ended up having various social services bid for their children, competing with the number, size of check that they would get. It didn't matter if the kids had autism. And what happened? Autism claims to Medicaid surged. In 2018, $3 million. By 2023, listen here, from $3 million to $400 million. Autism providers jumped from 41 to 328 in 5 years. Now, City Journal reports that the Somali fraud rings send a lot of money back to Somalia. 40% of households in Somalia get remittances from abroad. That totals $1.7 billion. That is more than the entire budget of the Somali government. Money being sent abroad, from abroad, back to Somalia. Where is that money going? Take a look at this. Most alarmingly, a lot of that money is funneled through money traders, and in the end, ends up in the hands of al-Qaeda-linked Islamic terror group Al-Shabaab. So to bring this full circle, the Minnesota taxpayers are funneling money through fraudulent autism claims back to Somalia, where that money lands in the accounts of Al-Shabaab.
This is what people don't understand. This wasn't a small group or a few bad actors. This was an industrial scale operation. Fake autism diagnosis, fake housing clients, fake disability cases. The program blew up from 2.6 million to 122 million in 4 years, and Minnesota still acted shocked. And that Al-Shabaab angle, that's not some conspiracy, all right? When you send 1.7 billion a year overseas and then add $500 million more through fraud, the risk isn't theoretical at all. This is why Trump said what he said. If you leave the borders wide open, corruption doesn't just stay local. It grows into a pipeline. And Governor Walz didn't just miss this. He was told this, 400 times? I want you to watch how he responds when he gets confronted.
Well, here we got a guy on Thanksgiving where we spent time with our families. We ate, we played Yahtzee, we cheered for football or whatever. This guy is apparently in a room ranting about everything else. This is not normal behavior. It is not healthy. And presidents throughout time have released a couple things. They've released their tax returns, not Donald Trump, and they've released their medical records, not Donald Trump. And look, the MRI is one thing, but I think what's most concerning about this is, as your viewers out there are listening, has anyone in the history of the world ever have an MRI assigned to them and have no idea what it was for, as he says. So look, it's clear the president's fading physically. I think the mental capacity, again, ranting, crazily at midnight on Thanksgiving about everything else, there's reasons for us to be concerned. This is a guy that randomly says the airspace over Venezuela is closed. He's ruminating on if you could win a nuclear war. Look, this is a serious position. It's the most powerful position in the world. And we have someone at midnight throwing around slurs that demonize our children. And at the same time, he's not solving any of the problems. So I'm deeply concerned that he is incapable of doing the job.
Imagine leading a state with the largest welfare scandal in modern history. Imagine hundreds of your own employees accusing you of retaliation. And this is what you choose to talk about? Really? Tim upon Tim? Really? Trump's Thanksgiving tweets is the topic, huh? It's classic deflection. I'm serious. When the fraud becomes too big to hide, attack the guy pointing at it, right? That's what they do. And notice he never addresses the substance, not the indictments, not the terror financing claims, not the retaliation, not the billions of dollars missing, just Trump every time. And while Walz tries to play doctor on MSNBS, as I like to call him, older allegations about Ilhan Omar started resurfacing again. And people forgot how deep the claim actually goes. I'm going to go ahead and warn y'all, this bubble it's going to be there throughout the video.
Also asking Congresswoman Craig to initiate an ethics investigation into Congresswoman Omar because of questions about federal tax fraud, federal immigration fraud, federal student loan fraud, and state violations of perjury, bigamy, kickbacks, and acts of campaign fraud abuse in Boston, Washington, New York, Chicago, and Florida. There are also violations of state ethics or of the Minnesota House ethics rules regarding colleges for speeches she gave while she was in partial control of their budgets as a member of the House Higher Education Finance Committee in both 2017 and 2018. She was found guilty of the violations by the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board 3 weeks ago in order to return those funds on June 6th. Ms. Omar appears to be a serial career criminal and should not have access to our nation's highest secrets and intelligence.
Exactly.
That is why I'm calling on our Congresswoman Angie Craig to protect both our national security and our respect of the rule of law. Tax fraud, immigration fraud, student loan fraud, perjury, bigamy, kickbacks, and campaign abuse fraud from the East Coast to the Mississippi River. If those charges have been...
You don't have to agree with every accusation, but you can't ignore that these claims have followed Omar for almost a decade. Marriage fraud, tax inconsistencies, perjury allegations, and though she only faced, a $500 fine, the rest of the story was never actually debunked. It was just buried. And now people are looking back at Minnesota's fraud epidemic and saying, hold on. This same political machine ignored red flags for years. Patterns matter. And the public is finally connecting them. Now, I want to go ahead and apologize, too. I realized that I bumped the mic a few times during that last video. Still got to get this microphone adjusted to this computer and all that good stuff. But there's that. And then this video went viral. It added a completely different layer to the anger building in Minnesota.
I hate that I will never experience the happiness that Somali haters experienced when they actually thought the TPS program affected more than 9 Somalis. Like, they really thought that was it. All the Somalis are just going to disappear. Like, poof, all of a sudden, no Somalis. Cedar Riverside is Mexican neighborhood now, or maybe not even a Mexican neighborhood. But yeah, it would likely just become a Mexican neighborhood. Yeah, and then, of course, Somalis have to be buzzkills by informing them of how many people that shit actually affects. You should have just let them be happy, you know? Hey, how about this? You pretend to deport us, and we pretend to be deported. Deal? Once again, for those who don't know, Somalis came to America in one big lump sum. Now, we came all at once in the late 90s, early 2000s. By the 2010s, 90% of us were citizens, and by the 2020s, 99% of us were citizens. The immigration process has nothing to do with us anymore. Right? It's done. It's a ball game. You might have had something back in 2005, but it's 20 years too late. I promise you, the Trump administration tried to look at ways to deport us and found out they genuinely had nothing. Like it's decades too late. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to collect welfare and impregnate a white woman. See ya.
This is exactly why Minnesotans feel betrayed. When people proudly mock the system, mock the benefits, mock taxpayers, it hits a nerve. Assimilation isn't just about culture. It's about respect for the country you chose. And imagine being a whistleblower inside Minnesota DHS, watching this. Wow, basically being told not to upset certain communities. This clip alone probably did more to shift public sentiment than any news article. And then when Trump was asked about the scandal, let's just say that my boy didn't hold back.
In that same post, you mentioned Tim Walz, and you called him what many Americans do find offensive or retarded. Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely, sure.
But you don't think that
you have a problem with it? You know what? I think there's something wrong with him. Anybody that would do what he did, anybody that would allow those people into his state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia. We give billions of dollars to Somalia. It's not even a country because it doesn't function like a country. It's got a name, but it doesn't function like a country. Yeah, there's something wrong with Walz.
In that same post, you mentioned Tim Walz.
Say what you want, but Trump knows how to cut straight to the point. Billions in aid to Somalia, billions in benefits, and a governor who refuses to admit anything went wrong. This is why Trump's base, is reacting the way they reacted. Americans feel like they're being scammed. And the people in charge just shrug. But while Trump is turning up the pressure on Walz, Ilhan Omar decides to brush off the entire conversation with a laugh.
I mean, I have no worry. I don't know how they take away my citizenship and deport me, but I don't even know why that's such a scary threat. I'm not the 8-year-old who escaped war anymore. I'm grown. My kids are grown. I can go live wherever I want. I mean, I have no worry. I don't know how they take away my citizenship and deport me, but
this is the moment that made people furious. Not because she's calm, but because she's casual. We are grown. I can live anywhere. Minnesotans are dealing with $1 billion scandal, terrorism allegations, and collapsed programs. And she treats the situation like it's a joke. Hey, why don't you just go back if that's the case? It didn't land well. Not this time. And then the real hammer dropped from inside Minnesota's own government.
Breaking news, 400 government employees over in Minnesota have officially come out and accused Governor Tim Walz of knowing about the problem of Somalians defrauding the government and the welfare system as a whole and not doing absolutely anything about it. Not only did he know, but he actually went out and targeted whistleblowers and people who tried to get the truth out there to the public. Anybody who put American taxpayers before that of the immigrants who were coming to scam our system was punished harshly by Tim Walz. And that is because the left is a cult. If you go against them in any way, shape, or form, they try to absolutely destroy your life. There is no room for discourse or nuance, and God forbid you actually care about the American people first. That is their biggest nightmare. Anything that might earn them the label of racist, they're going to avoid like the plague. They don't care who it hurts so long as it's not their precious illegal immigrants. It doesn't matter to them, and it is disgusting. What universe are we living in? What timeline are we living in where it's racist to call something out for what it is? What timeline are we living in where it's racist to actually enforce law and order and say that if we are going to let you into our country, which by the way, it is a privilege to be be here, then you not only have to follow the law, but you have to actually contribute something. Since when is it a crime to sit there and say you actually have to follow our legal immigration process, because not just anybody is welcome into our country. You have to wait your turn and you have to do it the right way. This has nothing to do with race, but of course the left knows that they have to try to twist the narrative in order to get their way.
Y'all, Thanksgiving is obviously not over because she is cooking. I mean, she was cooking. You know, this is the one clip that destroys Walz politically, all right? 400 employees. That number alone tells you this wasn't isolated, right? They're alleging ignored red flags, buried complaints, retaliation, media manipulation, terror finance concerns, suppression or suppressed, rather. This isn't negligence. It's a cover up. And just when you think the story couldn't escalate any further, someone from Somalia itself steps in.
The United States is home to one of the largest Somalian immigrant communities, who many of them fled Somalia after the fall of the Siad Barre regime. These immigrants not only find shelter and refuge in America, but have also managed to hold political offices to represent their constituents. However, many of these officials are increasingly shifting their focus to politics in Somalia while in office, getting involved in tribal conflicts in the Horn of Africa. These individuals actively exploit their position to stir discord among Somalis in the Horn of Africa. They often engage in lobbying, organize fundraising, and travel to conflict areas instead of prioritizing US interests. These individuals focus on the concerns of their clans in Somalia. Their activities often undermine the interest of the American people and betray the trust of their constituents. The recently widely reported video of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar pledging allegiance to Somalia has raised questions about her loyalty. Ilhan, who strongly opposes Somaliland and is reported to have family connections to the late communist dictator of Somalia. Her father, Noor Omar, served in the Siad Barre regime as an army colonel, and her grandfather was a high-ranking official. Many of these Somali Americans elected to office, including Ilhan Omar, are influenced by their strong clan affiliations and harbour animosity towards Somaliland and the majority of its people.
runtii halgankan muddadu socday runtii halganka sida loo soo maray dadka dhaqaalaha ku bixinayaan waqtiga ay gelinayaan waa dareemi kartiin xanuunku nagu hayay runtii farxad waxaan oo hadda heerna taagannahay aan ka fakarayna sidii loo dhisi lahaa maamulka bas taasna waa farxad ilaahay ma sha Allah ilaahay oo u mahad celinayno runtii ilaahay ka soo koonaa bulshada qaatimo kuwa Soomaaliya jooga oo runtii naftoodii horay ay ku qurbaha jooga oo runtii qaar laabteen qaarna dhaqaale ay runtii habeen iyo maalin ka daba fariisan ilaahay ku barakeeyana ku amaanaynaa.
ciyaarka intuu ku fadhiyo kursigaas hal single bill oo dadka degan mujtamaca degan ku nool district 3 anfacay ugu gudbinta waa hal bill hadduu cadaan yahay hadduu madow yahay hadduu Mexican yahay hal dadka in degan waa isku baahi.
One of the tools employed by Somalians to mislead the American public and the government involves the establishment of dubious non-profit organizations. These entities disguise themselves as working for the social welfare of all ethnic Somali Americans. One such organization is the United Somali Alliance, which is a non-profit that claims on its website to create resources and support for the advancement of Somali people in Minnesota and the US. However, a quick look at their Twitter reveals their misplaced focus and misalignment with their mission. They rarely address the needs of Somali Americans, dedicating too much attention to tribal matters outside of America, particularly in the Horn of Africa. One stark example of their involvement is evident in the conflict between Somaliland and the Lassa Nod militia, where they actively sabotage the efforts made by Somaliland to de-escalate the situation, inciting the people of Lasanod against the government, and hiring anti-Somaliland lobbyists in DC to attack the credibility of Somaliland and anyone who dares to support it. It's crucial to note that the United Somali Alliance operates as a 501c3 organisation and cannot engage in or participate in any political campaigns, directly or indirectly, as it is a violation of IRS regulations. Organisations like the United Somali Alliance often use Somali American elected officials to appear credible and form connections with political entities for influence. For instance, the United Somali Alliance, despite being a tax-exempt domestic organisation based in Minneapolis, hired anti-Somaliland lobbying firm in coordination with the Somali embassy in Washington, D.C. This lobbying firm is known for its strong anti-Somaliland rhetoric and actively works to sabotage relations between Somaliland and the United States. The United Somali Alliance appears to be operating under the direction of the Somali embassy, potentially violating federal laws by avoiding scrutiny under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. The activities engaged by these elected officials and the deployment of non-profit organizations not only neglect the needs of American constituents as it prioritized tribal interests outside of America, but also work against the interests of the United States in the Horn of Africa by destabilizing the region and creating tribal enclaves and militias.
Well, this is embarrassing. My camera died. Yeah, so I guess I'll try to talk through this with this muted. We're right at the end, so, you know, and y'all know I'm black. I'm just super dark skinned right now. But when leaders from the Horn of Africa are calling Ilhan Omar ungrateful and demanding she be deported back to, you know, where she came from, that's not America talking. That's not right-wing media. That's our own region saying it. And the documentary lays out something uncomfortable. The allegation that some Somali American officials bring their tribal politics into U.S. politics and use U.S. taxpayer dollars to influence conflicts abroad. Whether viewers agree or not, the perception damage is massive. This is why the title lines up perfectly. She can't escape this anymore, not globally, not politically, not culturally. And then I'll leave y'all with this because I know y'all are basically listening to a ghost. Minnesota isn't just dealing with fraud, it's dealing with the collapse of trust. Trust in its leaders, trust in its programs, and trust in the people who were supposed to protect the system, not drain it. Trump put the spotlight back on all of it. And for the first time, the whole country is watching. Now, if you made it to the end of this video, I want you to write, "We are watching you." Other than that, y'all be safe. Go check on a friend today. I'm going to go ahead and check on my charger. But you could be saving their life, y'all. Y'all be safe. Peace.